video, I'm gonna be telling you the story time of the guy I was dating at one point in my life, left me at his house to go and snort crack with his friend. That's right, you heard me right. So the time of the story taking place, I actually just started working again at Wolfgang Puck in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I left my job at UPS. I worked there for a while. It was good physical labor. I would come home with like bruises the size of like a baseball on the side of my thigh. When I went out or when I went in public, I always got pulled to the side for a while, and I got asked like, are you okay? Are you being physically abused at home? Just know that like there's a helpline for that, blah, blah, blah. Like these were just random strangers that would just come up to me and ask me if I'm okay. Because the size of
1 minute via south.
Because the size of these bruises on my legs were really intense. They were big, they were purple, they were green, they were like in your face. So by that point, after a handful of people would pull me aside and say stuff like that, I decided it's probably in my best interest to quit this job. And I went and worked at the job I really liked because they opened up again after COVID. With that being said, this guy worked at UPS. He was the only child. He used to be on the football team in high school. So as you can tell, he was like a really attractive individual. He used to hang out every other week. His parents would go out of town to go up north because I'd spend the night at his house. We'd get drunk, we'd go to bars and stuff, and we'd crash at his. But what I didn't know was that he was addicted to cocaine. So here we go. I got off work one day, 9:30 at night. His parents were out of town. They were up north. And he said, you know, let's plan our weekly get-together tonight. So I met him at the bowling alley, and on my way to the bowling alley, which is across the street from where UPS is, which is where all the UPSers normally hang out, one of his UPS friends was there, and this random guy he met like a week ago that works on a boat or something to that extent was there at the bowling alley. So he said, hey, I met up with some friends, no worries, you can come here, we can hang out for a bit and then go back to mine. I was like, okay, no worries. So I went there, and the whole time I was there, this guy was so up this guy's ass, and I didn't really understand it. There was several times throughout the night where the guy I was dating would go to the bathroom at the same time as this other guy. They'd be like, we'll be right back, we're going to the bathroom, blah, blah, blah. And this other guy was making an excuse like my stomach really hurts. But obviously his stomach didn't really hurt. Now after I know the whole story, I knew actually what they were doing at this bowling alley was going and snorting lines of crack in the bathroom. Yes, this guy was providing the cocaine, so you know, he was into that. So we had to drive home separately. Well, the guy's family, the guy that works on the boat, his family lives 30 minutes to an hour from where this guy I was dating lived at. And I guess he'd been dropped off from the other UPS guy, blah, blah, blah. Moral of the story, he didn't have a ride. So at the end of the night, the guy needed a ride home, so he offered to take him home, and then he was gonna meet me back at his house. No worries, I'll give you my garage code, and then I'll be home in about an hour, like after I drop him off, an hour to 2 hours. So I made it home, and it was actually like an early night. So I made it back to his house at around 11:30 or 12. Waiting for him to come around. So I started to watch some stuff on his TV, just waiting for him to come back, and I texted him around the time he was supposed to be here, and I'm like, where the hell are you at? Like, how far away are you? Like, are you stuck in traffic? Blah, blah, blah. So he responded to me, goes, no, I'm just in a deep conversation right now. I'm sorry, I'll get going soon. And I said, okay, no worries. So I waited another hour. So by this point, it was like 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, right? I think I should have been harder on the guy at this point. The fact that he was snorting coke in the bathroom and pretending like he wasn't is kind of fucked. He didn't like want to just tell me. I got tired. I decided, I was like, I'm just gonna go to sleep. Like, he calls me up at 5 o'clock in the morning, right? He's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, I got so caught up. Like, there's actually more to the story. At this point, I should have just went home and said, fuck it, because like, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. This guy's calling me just now saying he's leaving.
Turn left onto North.
So it makes it back at like 6:30 or 7 in the morning. This guy had to work the next day. This guy worked at, I want to say like lunchtime or something, so he had to leave in order to make it to work by lunchtime, so we couldn't really spend much time in the morning with him. But essentially this guy just keeps blowing me off and, you know, pushing it back, and then he gets home and he's like high as a kite. Like, he's not able to go to sleep. I'm tired as fuck at this point. It's like 7 in the morning. I didn't go to sleep till like 3. So I'm tired as fuck. I want to go to sleep, and this guy's just like high on life. And he eventually, to the point, he's so high, he's like, let's go watch something in the living room, blah, blah, blah. And he eventually just confesses that he had been doing lines of coke. And I was like, you know, I'm not a fan of drugs. I'm not wanting to be with someone that's on drugs. It's like hard to get off of. If you get caught, you can go to prison. I really don't want to deal with that. If it's anything that's going to be like a long-term thing, I'm just not into it. And he got like all upset with me. He's like, you don't even understand. Drugs is just like marijuana. Like you sometimes like weed or you like alcohol. It's the same kind of thing. And I'm like, I don't care what you want to say you think it is. I am not a fan of drugs, man. And the fact that you blew me off until 5 in the morning and I had to stay at your house while I waited for you to come back is fucking insane. There was a few times he would go and hang out with one of his supervisors, turn his location off, and he's the one that asked me for my location. Like, I could care less where your location is because we're not in a serious relationship. Like, I'm not obligated to, you know, have any idea about where you are if we're just like casually dating. So he's the one that requested my location, and it was so weird because every time he would go over to a supervisor's house, which was a female actually, he would turn his location off. And I'm just like, dude, and you would get a notification every time they would turn their location off too. So I texted one of my friends that also works at UPS, one of my close guy friends that I've been friends with since like freshman year, and I was like, hey, do you know what the fuck is up with so-and-so? And he'd be like, oh yeah, they went over to what's-her-name's house. Like, I want the best for you, Taylor. I just don't think things are gonna work out with you and him. He actually went over to the supervisor's house this morning before work, and they've been hanging out like a lot, and he never told me where he was going whenever he turned up his location. He would just like go dead silent. But the thing about it was every time he'd go over there, he would smoke cocaine and he would do like hardcore drugs and stuff like that. So like it was almost like he was protecting me where I would still be with him or like, you know, casually date him even though he was actually still participating in doing cocaine and all, which is kind of messed up in general. But so after a while, it just didn't pan out. I just stopped talking to the guy in general, but I think it was just hilarious. Like a time I could be like, yeah, there was a guy that actually left me in his house to go snort cocaine. The next topic I want to talk about has to do with a coworker at work. So I thought I was a shitty person after the incident, but while the incident was happening, I didn't think I was a shitty person before going into it. This is why you need to be careful about what you say to people and how you say it, because you never really know what the heck is actually going on in people's lives. And here's the story to back that up. So there's a food runner that wanted to go home early, and normally they don't go home until around 4. So he went around all day and he was just complaining because the manager wasn't going to let him go home. He's like, I have to go home early. Like, it's really important that I go and buy my best friend's new dog toys and new treats, and I have to do it today. Like, I have to go and buy him new dog treats and dog toys. And he just went around saying it like all day. And I was like to him in a joking manner, like just joking with him, being like, dude, there is any other day, go and buy this dog new dog treats and dog toys. Like, it's not that important for you to go and do this. Like, you're here till 4. Who's gonna hold up the restaurant? Who's gonna run the food without you? Kind of as a joke. He got pissed off. He didn't want to talk to me at all. He's like, you don't even understand where I'm coming from. How can you dare say that? Blah, blah, blah. Like, just very dramatic. So further in the day, before he actually went home, I went up to him and I'm like, hey, I'm so sorry. Like, is there anything you want to like let off your chest that's like going on? And the guy's like, yeah, so recently my best friend and his wife went to work and they came home and their whole house had burned down and their dog was dead and they had nothing left. And I was like, whoa, like what? What? I am astonished. Like, my face is like, oh. And I guess how they found out is their neighbor called them when the fire department had already been there trying to like save the remainders of the house, that like, hey, like your house burnt down, blah blah blah. And they did some investigating into it and come to find out like the reason for the fire was from a simple spark from the Wi-Fi router. So after I heard that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna like proceed to unplug all of my shit. Yeah, from here on out, we're gonna like make sure we don't have a fire. Like, I'm gonna unplug everything in my house before I go, because that's like insane to think about. That just like a small spark from a Wi-Fi router can like end your whole life or end your whole house's existence, more so. I think the last thing I want to mention but I still don't know if I'm 100% ready to go into the details of, is I recently quit my job at a Wolfgang Puck in downtown, or not downtown Los Angeles, but in California. I'm not going to tell you the exact location, but I will give you some prime details that might help you figure out what the worst Wolfgang Puck is in my entire existence is. Like, it's the worst Wolfgang Puck I've ever worked for. It's the worst Wolfgang Puck probably to ever exist. There's no steps of service whatsoever. The work ethic is poor. People on a rant here. They auction off food. They don't even know like their seat numbers half the time. The servers don't have steps of service, so half the time the customers walk up to the host, the server assistant, or the food runner and ask for their checks at least like 75% of the time, and the list goes on. It's just like, I think whoever is running it doesn't have the proper knowledge or intelligence to like run a restaurant like this. Half the people call out like all the time. The managers disappear to make Bloody Mary mix in the middle of a shift, no matter if it's busy or not. There's just like a whole bunch of shit, like a whole list of things that go wrong. At least 10 people walk out in a day. That's not normal. But let me just give you some prime details that might help you figure it out, but I'm not going to tell the exact name of the restaurant, okay? Okay, here we go. So it's inside of a brand new hotel. The hotel is probably about 1.5 to 2 years old right now, and there's also another Wolfgang on the roof, if that helps at all. So I don't think I actually would have had the balls to make the decision until I got harassed so much that there was no choice but to quit. Like, the main chef there had something against me. I think it was like a racial card. Like, he would literally go around and tell certain employees not to talk to me. Like, if I asked if they needed anything, if they needed help or whatever, like, not to talk to me at all. Like, that is like a harassment charge almost. Like, harassment that I could have taken to HR for. And then we got into like a little falling out, like me and the chef did. And he essentially like took me to HR and said like, she's really rude, she never does her job. And it was just because 2 people walked in. I was helping run food to like a rooftop upstairs, and the chef saw 2 people like walk in and seat themselves, and he like had a conniption fit, and he took me to HR and basically said that I wasn't doing my job and blah blah blah, and somehow I got written up for it. So love that for me. And I do remember the time that they blamed me for like getting my hair in someone's food even though I hadn't run any food that day. Essentially, they pulled me aside. The management was like, hey, by the way, we had to comp like this massive bill because someone found a blonde hair in their food, and we just wanted to let you know, if you're gonna like run food or anything at all, you need to like put your hair back, or just in general you need to wear your hair up. And it almost like it took it almost like a race card once again. Like, they had it out for me because everyone that worked there was Mexican or Latino. HR is like black. So moral of the story, I'm one of the only Caucasians that really works there, and they had it out for me. And I was like, oh, you mean the server that took care of that? They have ombre hair. She's Asian, right? She's like, no, I don't think it was the server, but like, I guess I could tell her too. In my head, I'm like, what the hell? Like, you're telling your host, you're putting the blame on the host for getting her hair in the people's food, and that's why you have to comp their meal, and you're upset about it? Like that was up to you. Like, lady, that was up to you. You didn't have to comp their meal. If I was working at a different Wolfgang Puck, it would have been handled completely differently. The rule 100% was always everyone had to wear their hair up except for the host. But the host never got the blame for the food in the hair because I wasn't around the food. And as far as comping meals, you don't comp their entire meal. You comp the entree that had the food in it, and you give them a free dessert, essentially. You don't comp their entire meal. That's not like something that's generally speaking, because you're just enticing the people's behavior. Anyways, I'm gonna get off my rant because if I keep ranting anymore, it's gonna be bad. But I think that's gonna be the end of the Car Podcast today. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I love you all. I appreciate you all. I'll have my links to my social medias on the screen where you can check me out when I'm not here on YouTube.